Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream panel that we have on inclusion, impact, innovation, and how investing in refugees yields growth and opportunity. As we wait for our colleagues, our friends, stakeholders, interested parties to join this live stream, it is my pleasure to welcome you from my wonderful office, my home here in London. It's been a pleasure to be working with the UNHCR for the past few months, and this particular panel we have coming up is extremely exciting for me because I very rarely get to do things like this, holding people to account and making sure that they are as excited and energized to be part of this mission that the UNHCR have. So for those of you who are joining us live, welcome. We've got a lot of show to pack in to the time that we have allotted, and a lot of comment, contribution, pledges to discuss and talk through. So as we wait for our colleagues to join the stream for only one more minute, it's just enough time for me to say there will be ample opportunity for you to contribute. We want to hear your thoughts and your contributions. So the best way to do that, I will reiterate this later on, isn't through the chat function. The best way to do that is to use the question and answer function that usually lives at the bottom of the screen wherever you are joining us from on this call. Now, this is a live stream, so if somebody drops off or if there are sound issues, we will do our best to keep up. We have our interpreter, Susan, here, who's doing the interpreting for us. Hopefully this will be in many languages so that you're getting it translated in a language that suits you. And we have closed captioning available as well. So without any further ado, I think we'll wait for a couple of more moments. And as soon as we are ready, we will begin. But those of you who are joining us now, thank you so much for doing so. Keep your questions and your comments coming in using that question and answer function. So just so you know, to enable the captioning, you can, I think, click on one of the buttons at the bottom of the screen also. So all of that is available to you if you need. Okay, without any further ado, I think it's time to begin our panel. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's panel. The panel is titled Inclusion, Impact, Innovation: How Investing in Refugees Yields Growth and Opportunity. My name is Niloufar Hidayat, and I am a journalist, a TV host, a documentarian, and a former refugee myself. I'm delighted to be here sharing this space with you to moderate this discussion on refugee livelihoods. Thank you to my panelists in advance for their participation and their time. We have participants on the call. We're also joined by governments, NGOs, the private sector, and many more of you. For those of you watching, your voice and your contribution is valued and very much encouraged. Please do not use the chat function in Zoom, as we'll not be able to see your contribution, but do use the question and answer button, usually at the bottom of the screen, to contact us with your thoughts throughout this live stream. I want to thank the UNHCR for having me again. I moderated a panel this past May on the private sector's role in the Global Compact on Refugees, and it's good to see some returning faces and speakers here with us today, and I'm very excited to meet some new ones too. Now, today we are going to be putting a spotlight on the unique and varied contributions that the private sector is making towards the refugee cause. We've seen amazing pledges, truly wonderful pledges being made by the private sector at the Global Refugee Forum in 2019, pledges to create jobs, to provide scholarships, to support entrepreneurs, and to raise awareness and shift the narrative. So, where are we with all of this? What should be our collective ambition in a world upended by a pandemic and a climate emergency? Some of us still need convincing, would you believe, that what is good for refugees is also good for business and for hosting communities. Now, these days, refugees have access to smartphones. Journalists, my counterparts and my colleagues are able to get real-time, up-to-date developing stories out to the wider world. So are stakeholders and interested parties responding to refugee needs on the refugees' terms? In short, what is the cost of our success? And are we meeting the moment? Our speakers may not have the answers to these profound and quite difficult questions, but they are absolutely on track to find solutions. With their pledges, they're opening doors, and by doing so, they're building the evidence that shows how to make this endeavor work. Joining me today, Kelly Clements, the Deputy High Commissioner with the UNHCR. Tolga Unju, Retail Operations Manager with the Inca Group, which operates IKEA stores worldwide. Julienne Euler, the Chief Executive Officer with the African Entrepreneur Collective, the AEC. And Sergio Pimenta, Vice President for Africa with the International Finance Corporation, or IFC. Unfortunately, I'm sad to say that one of our speakers, Noor Mars, is unable to attend today. Thank you all for being here to have this important conversation on refugee livelihoods and to call on pledges to stay the course and even maybe scale up their commitments to refugees, and also to hear from each other's successes and experiences. What an amazing opportunity, something we don't often get to do. Kelly, if I may, I'd love to come to you first. We see that integrating refugees remains a pressing challenge for countries, and it's time to see them as, I don't know, maybe an opportunity rather than a burden. That's something you've spoken about before, but that requires action. So can you give us a brief overview on the pledges that we have, particularly those of the private sector's commitments in helping refugees to become self-reliant and active participants in their host countries?
Thank you, Nilüfer. And I have to say, I'm really thrilled to see you back here. I really enjoyed the conversation we had in May. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you and Tolga and Sergio and Julienne will share with us today. Just to start, since the Refugee Forum took place 2 years ago, 2019, over 1,500 pledges have been made across a broad range of areas: responsibility sharing, education, jobs, livelihoods, energy, and infrastructure. And they're dedicated towards finding solutions and building protection capacity. Between 2020 and 21, UNHCR received about 49% updates on progress, 49%. And from these updates, 6% are in the planning stage, 75% are in the implementation progress stage, which is fantastic. And 146 pledges, Nilüfer, have been fulfilled. These figures are important because they show really remarkable efforts on the part of many, many, many. And they also highlight the need to reflect how we translate unimplemented commitments into action. And so we're encouraging those who haven't reported on progress or haven't found ways to initiate them to take them further to concrete outcomes. We're really proud to see the incredible engagement, solidarity of the private sector actors in finding solutions to the refugee cause. They're looking beyond immediate humanitarian aid. Many businesses have already considered and operationalized innovative ways to improve livelihoods of refugees and a more structured future with better opportunities. Others are on the horizon, as Julienne and I saw recently in Kigali at the inaugural Africa Private Sector Forum on Forced Displacement. I know she'll talk to you more about that. And placing refugees obviously at the center of the global response, it's the right thing to do. And many private sector actors have also grasped the strong business case for investing in refugees. They see the great value refugees bring into businesses, local communities. They're a talented but really often overlooked pool of workers with different skills, potential customers, hard worker, entrepreneurs, employers, investors, innovators. And until now, the private sector launched over 90 pledges, encompassing about 34% on commitments to foster jobs and livelihoods, and 22% are dedicated to advancing refugee education, so critical. We have some inspiring examples from our key partners, building on the pledges from the Global Refugee Forum that brought huge benefits. For example, I know we'll hear from Tolga with IKEA, elaborating further on, but let me say how inspiring it is to see 3 organizations making commitments. The IKEA Foundation, a longstanding partner of ours since 2010, the Inca Group, overseeing IKEA's retail operations in over 30 countries, and the Inter-IKEA Group, which connects IKEA franchises with development and suppliers. Lego Foundation pledged to early childhood education through Play Matters in Uganda and in Ethiopia. It's an amazing initiative to develop play-based learning to children, looking ahead to cultivate a generation of creative and lifelong learners with skills that serve them, their communities, and the society as a whole. And then we have many more committed partners like the Tent Partnership for Refugees, which mobilize businesses across the globe, creating jobs for business and supporting those owned by refugees and improving their access to services. Sheikh Thani bin Abdullah bin Tan Al Thani's landmark 35 million grants for displaced in Yemen and Bangladesh through UNHCR's Zakat program. There was MasterCard Foundation and their commitment to expand its scholars program and designated 3,750 higher education scholarships to talented refugees and displaced youth in Africa to allow them to complete their education and create the next generation of qualified professionals. And PillNet, their pledge involved over 30 law firms, legal departments of major companies like Microsoft, Bloomberg, and BNP Paribas. It provided refugees with life-changing pro bono legal advice and access to justice. We know that many struggles among refugees are undeniable. We all know this, and this is why we do what we do and why we have come today to talk about these options. Private sector engagement, it's crucial to respond with timely and sustainable solutions for refugees so that they're self-reliant, not dependent, and that they're active members of their host societies. There are lots and lots of opportunities where we're going to be able to work together. We can continue to strengthen collective impact. And so really, we must act. And we thank you all for joining and the commitment shown so far. Thanks, Nilüfer.
Thank you, Kelly. Indeed, the private sector has the tools to respond with timely and sustainable solutions for refugees to become self-reliant. But what I heard very loudly in your remarks is this idea of a holistic approach. The need for all sectors of society to work hand in hand with refugees. The rhetoric itself seems very different to when I was growing up as a refugee, and that is thanks to the UNHCR's work, but also to other parts of civic society stepping up and the private sector stepping up. So all very encouraging. Kelly, we will be back with you shortly, so stay right where you are. I want to turn now to Tolga, because this is where IKEA comes in. It's good to see you again. For many years, IKEA has been a key global partner for refugee engagement, and IKEA has been working hand in hand with the UNHCR to provide refugees with lots of different opportunities, frankly, but especially when it comes to decent jobs. But how does it also contribute to businesses and host societies? So Tolga, my question to you, where does Inco's pledge stand today, and what is the value that refugees have brought to IKEA since the company started to support refugee employment?
Thank you so much, Nella, for giving me the opportunity to talk about our engagement, and also big thanks for UNHCR for holding this event. It's almost 2 years ago when we were together and at the Global Refugee Forum, where we shared that IKEA needs to step up when it comes to our support for integration of refugees. IKEA is a humanistic company. Our vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And we believe that refugees can bring a lot of value and contribution for us to become better in living up to our vision, if we, of course, allow them. We support refugees because it's the right thing to do, but also because it makes a lot of business sense. Here is why. For us, diversity is very important. It's proven that diverse companies are more innovative and more profitable. It's super important for us to stay curious and innovative in order to make IKEA better. Today, more than ever, having a resilient workforce is more important than ever. And here we see a lot of experience in our refugee colleagues joining IKEA in being resilient and also be adaptive to life-changing situations. But also both our co-workers and customers are demanding that businesses do good in order for them to engage and stay connected to them. But before I share a little bit what has happened since we met 2019, just to share some of the challenges that we have been facing. To be honest, it hasn't been very easy. It took us a while to learn how we should make progress in this space and take some of the learnings to share with you. It has not been business as usual, that's for sure. And one of the first things we realized is this is not something we can do by ourselves. How to make sure we find the right global partners, such as UNHCR or Tent organization, but also local connections to make sure that we have a total 360 approach. Again, try to do this by ourselves is not going to be possible. And strong commitment, of course, from the top, and making sure that we invest in the narrative and the understanding of the why this is important. Why is this the right thing to do? And why is it so good for business? That took us a while, and we have also failed some of the steps on the way, which is a great opportunity for learning. So where do we stand today with the pledges that we made when we met 2019? I would say we are more than progressing, more than what we had expected, which I'm very, very proud of, yet we are still just in the very beginning. As Ingka Group, we committed that we will give and support 2,500 refugees through job training and language skills in 30 countries where we operate. As of today, we have given 847 refugees an opportunity to join these programs in 22 countries. And I can say that nearly 61% of the participants in the program is now working at IKEA or at another company. So we're extremely proud of that number, which is higher than any other recruitment program we have ever had at IKEA. So one of them is Abdul. Abdul is a Syrian refugee who now is living in Czech Republic. He actually had his own furniture business in Syria, and the nickname here in IKEA is the Mini Ingvar from Syria has now joined IKEA. And we are very happy when listening to Abdul saying that thanks to this program, he got the chance to tackle the two biggest challenges he faced when he arrived to Czech, which is A, to learn the language, and B, to get a job. And he said, the most important feeling I have today is that I have weekdays and weekends. Before I had only weekends, and he didn't say it in a positive way. He missed the weekdays where he had a purpose. So also our buddy system is really working very well. So it's not only that we provide language training and job skills, we also have a buddy system where we pair up IKEA coworkers from the country with the participants of the program. And we also have buddies sharing with us their experience. If you take Justine from France, she is similar to many others, having pre-judgmental thoughts about refugees, never have met one, never been close to anybody, never talked to one. And after being a buddy in the French program, she is reaching out and saying, thanks to this, I have learned so much. And I understand when we say equality, diversity, and inclusion, today I understand what it actually means, that everybody has a right to be part of a society. So this is just some examples of the stories we have. In 22 countries, there are multiple stories like this. And by end of FY22, which is August next year, we will be already in 28 of our 30 countries. So we are good on our way within the Ingka Group on the pledge that we did. Let me share for Inter-IKEA, where we said we will provide 400 women an opportunity for livelihood through the Jordan River Foundation, and that we will be selling not only in 5 countries the products they produce, but in all the countries. Today, we have 270 women participating in the Jordan River Foundation work, and we are selling their goods in 30 countries, which was 5 before, which is already 2 times the volumes that we predicted. So very, very happy for that outcome as well. Last but not least, IKEA Foundation also pledged to donate 100 million in grants over 5 years for programs that helps refugees. And today, by end of 2021, they are pacing on a number of 22 million. So on target, slightly above. So I would confidently say that we are going to reach and exceed the pledge commitment that we made.
Gosh, that's a lot to take on board. Success after success after success. I'm just reeling from it. So give me a moment to get my head around it. One of the key things that you stipulated was that over 800 people in 20 countries or so their lives have been transformed. In the course of this stream, you're going to hear, dear viewers, many people talk about these numbers. One thing to emphasize, and Tolga, if I may come back to you with a question, but one thing to emphasize is that each one of these people has a ripple effect through a community, both refugee, local communities and host nations, that is incalculable. And I've heard from you speak before, Tolga, on measuring that incalculable effect and that change. But why refugees? Why not other vulnerable communities? Why has IKEA chosen to take this this issue on very seriously?
It is a both and. So it's not only refugees, but in this case, when we have this session, we want to highlight the efforts we do connected to refugees. Refugees are very vulnerable group. They have been forced to leave what they called home and to start a life somewhere else. And it's not always easy. When I spoke to Abdul, he was really sharing a heartbreaking story, how difficult it is when you are trying to learn a language, but you don't have the right paper in order to participate in the school, in the learning classes. He wanted to have a job to contribute to the society, but also take care of his family. Yet he didn't have the language, nor the paper either. So he was in a vacuum, and there is very little support in the system that we are able to give. Often, many refugees fall out of the system. And when we look at statistics, we only measure the people who are within the system. That's why I think it's so important for the refugees and their families. But if I turn it from a business point of view, as I said, it is incredibly important for us at IKEA to get access to the talent and the rawness of knowledge that sits with a lot of these people, and offer them an opportunity to join our journey, which is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And whom knows that better than people who has really been really suffering in defining a better everyday life versus many of us who has not been forced to live the same situation. So for me, there is so many aspects to put in there, Nelafur.
I love how you got the IKEA motto in there. That's very good work from you. We're all impressed. Great job. Thank you so much for that, Tolga. Moving on, we've got Sergio on the phone. I'm absolutely energized now. All of that has geared me up to hear from you, Sergio. The next question is to you. Why should development actors invest in creating new markets in refugee hosting areas? And what do we mean by new markets? How is the IFC specifically addressing these challenges?
Thank you very much, Nilüfer. And it's a great pleasure to be here. And thank you to the UNHCR also for inviting me to join this discussion. I'm really honored to be with all this distinguished panelists, and it was, as you said, very energizing also to hear from IKEA on what they're doing in this space. Let me try to answer your question, talk a little bit about what the private sector is doing and can do. And you did mention earlier some of the actions that the private sector is doing through corporate social responsibility initiatives. And this is indeed one of the ways that the private sector has been active in this space, and with the support of the UNHCR, by the way. And I think it's very important that this type of initiatives do continue and do continue moving forward. But what is, I think, quite new and what is growing is that beyond CSR, beyond corporate social responsibility, there is a real core business side of the companies that can get and can be more involved in this space. And that, for me, I think it's a very positive evolution. Because as we see that many refugee situations are becoming more protracted. There are actually more development challenges that need to be addressed beyond the short-term humanitarian ones. And this is where I believe that the private sector can really contribute to address these challenges. And I'm talking about financial inclusion, I'm talking about food security, housing, training, vocational training. Tolga was mentioning the importance of that, for instance, and renewable energy. And this is where at IFC we are also aiming to support, and this is what we have been doing. And you mentioned rightly so about creating markets, and I think this is exactly what it means: is that we have to look at the question of forced displacement as actually a opportunity to create new activities, not just for the refugees but also for the host communities. Because as we all know, refugees want to find ways of becoming self-sustainable. They want to find jobs. They want to help their families. They want to help the communities in which they're living. And this is actually very important. And this type of activity can be developed through more private sector projects, more private sector opportunities that can really lead to more employment, more growth, and so on. And I think that's the lens we need to look at. We need to see how we can improve the regulatory framework. We can reduce the risk for investors. We can deploy some technical assistance to remove bottlenecks. And that's what I think creating markets means. It's to take a longer view and a longer engagement and commitment approach of this question. So it also requires, I would say, a more systematic approach to make sure that private sector engagement in forced displacement context is stronger. Let me maybe mention a bit what IFC has been doing in this space since the Global Refugee Forum 2 years ago. We have grown our portfolio of initiatives and actually significantly, and including on the geographical perspective. 2 years ago, when we're talking, we were very engaged in the Levant. We were doing initiatives in Jordan, in Lebanon, and also in Africa, in particular in Kenya, with, for instance, all our work on the Kakuma camp. But we were focusing mostly only at that time on these two geographies. I mean, since then, we have launched several very promising initiatives in Latin America, mostly focusing on the financial inclusion of Venezuelan refugees. And let me just give you maybe one example. We are working with Banca Mia. It's a microfinance institution in Colombia, who's working with the refugees from Venezuela to develop financial offerings for them. So it's something that is quite, I think, interesting. And we are doing similar interventions in some of the neighboring countries. In terms of beyond the geography, we've also, I would say, deepened our engagement in the countries where we were present. And for instance, we've been leveraging a very interesting initiative sponsored by the Dutch, which is called the Prospects Initiative. And this initiative is actually something where we're engaging with other partners, including with the UNHCR, but also UNICEF, ILO, and the World Bank. And this allows us to roll out new initiatives in the Middle East and in Africa that are very much focusing on entrepreneurship. And to give you one example, we've supported, for instance, in Jordan, Flat Six Labs, who's an incubator for entrepreneurs, with a very early stage venture fund and also a seed program initiative that is supporting refugees and host communities create their new businesses, start new businesses. And so it's very much building on their entrepreneurship skills. So that's the type of initiatives we're doing. And of course, I'm sure we'll continue growing. This is very much our goal. We are dedicating more resources to that, and IFC will be helping. So very excited about everything we can do on that front.
Sergio, one thing I'm learning from you and from Tolga is the importance of reinventing the wheel. Yes, there's a lot to be learned from the past, but there is so much more that we can do in the future that involves innovative thinking rather than just dealing with sort of pressing issues of the moment. The UNHCR is built to respond to traumatic, difficult situations. The private sector can capitalize on the refugees that are then saved in those situations and can be, as you've both mentioned, as assets to any private sector business, but also host communities. So I'm learning a lot here. I hope those of you tuning in from all over the world are keeping up. There's a lot to get through still, and this is where I would like to bring in Julienne. The African Entrepreneur Collective made a pledge to support 35,000 refugees and host community entrepreneurs with business development and low-cost loans. Could you tell me more about this pledge and the progress that you've made so far? Maybe any hard learnings that you want to tell us about. What have you learned along the way that you think anyone watching right now should know?
Thanks so much, Nilüfer, and so nice to see everyone on this panel. I feel like you've made it really easy to send out my holiday thank you notes because we are in partnership with IFC, partnership with UNHCR, and also partnership with the IKEA Foundation. And so it's always nice to be in partnership. So thanks for the question, and I'll come back to my comments about my pledge first, or our pledge first. But I want to start off by saying that African Entrepreneur Collective, we believe that all problems in Africa already have solutions that exist on the continent. And for us, this belief is very powerful. It shapes the way we do all of our work. So in 2019, at the Global Refugee Forum, one of the problems that we discussed was how can we collectively get more private sector companies involved in refugee communities? And so the first thing that we said to ourselves is, well, if all problems we face have solutions locally, right, then the solution to getting more private sector involved in refugee communities is to actually better engage the private sector that already exists there. And for us, those are refugee and host community entrepreneurs. And for the 4 years prior to GRF, at AEC, we had provided business development support and low-cost financing to about 5,000 businesses. And we were seeing impressive results in business growth and job creation and livelihood improvement. But we wanted to push ourselves. And we were inspired by many of the pledges that really put up big numbers. So for us, we said, okay, well, over the next 4 years, we're going to work with 35,000 businesses in refugee communities across East Africa. And like everyone else, 3 months after this big declaration in December of 2019, the world changed. The way of doing business changed. Our ability to deliver services changed. But most importantly, our sense of urgency changed. And the need that we saw in our communities changed as well. They increased, and we knew that we had to get to work. And for us, seeing refugee communities that are isolated at the ends of very long global supply chains, entrepreneurs in these communities are the entry point for essential goods and services. And if these communities were going to survive the pandemic, we knew that we needed to provide relevant business support services so that businesses could keep food on the shelves, right? And basic supplies like soap, like PPE on the shelves. And so for us, like everyone else, right, we had to pivot, and we had to pivot immediately. And that's the nice thing about working in private sector is that, we have the opportunity to be nimble and we can pivot. So the first thing that we did was we did an assessment of digital capabilities of our clients, and we started pushing out our trainings and our consultings through technology. These were feature phone enabled technology such as interactive voice response, but also sort of more smart technology, like developing our own mobile app so that people could apply for loans remotely. And, we also knew that we needed to keep cash in the hands of our clients. And so that was offering immediate grace periods for any of our investments, interest and fee waivers. And we also, through the support of our incredible partners like MasterCard Foundation and the IKEA Foundation, we actually raised an economic stimulus fund to give COVID relief grants to businesses so that they could get back up once markets opened.
I just want to interject with one thing.
Please.
They sound absolutely sensible decisions you made at critically the right moment. It can't have been easy.
No, but when you're driven by values, right? This is where certainty is seen in such great uncertainty in the world. And it was these values that we had that allowed us to keep going. You know, no one knows a refugee community better than the refugee who lives in that community themselves. And we hired locally. About half of our staff in these refugee communities are refugees themselves. So when the world was locking down, these colleagues of mine did not get locked out of their communities. So we were able to seamlessly deliver services while everybody else had to adjust. And we knew that we had to work quickly. And one of the things that we did was we actually leveraged the knowledge that we had, which is that, you know, in times of uncertainty, refugee communities are incredibly stable, right? We know the consumption of these markets, much of thanks to, you know, IFC and some of the market sizing they've done in Kakuma and Kalobeye. But we knew this. And so when all of our other markets, and we work with SMEs, you know, nationally as well, there was a lot of volatility there, but the refugee communities were predictable. And in times of uncertainty, predictability is key. And, you know, today, 98% of these businesses are back up and running. 90% of these businesses are back to their pre-COVID employee and revenue levels. And now at the end of 2021, we're about 75% of the way through our pledge. And we know that we'll be able to exceed our 35,000 businesses a year early. And that pushes us to do even more. So just yesterday, we had a board meeting and we said, okay, well, if we've been able to work with 35,000 businesses in 3 years, let's stretch ourselves. So to end this part, our next pledge for whoever's listening is that over the next 9 years, we'll work with 350,000 businesses. So this is a 3x increase over what we've done before, because as Tolga said, you know, when doing the right thing also makes business sense, then you just let growth take over, and in many ways, just enjoy the ride.
You said you were pushed by pledges others made, and pledges grow pledges is what I'm hearing from you, Julienne. Thank you so much for those quite moving remarks as well. There is consensus here for those of you who are watching the live stream. All of my guests so far agree that the future, however unstable or difficult might be, that instability and uncertainty is something refugees are very familiar with. And lo and behold, they're able to cope in ways that certainly someone like me in my life now couldn't. But Julienne, thank you so much for that insight and for that increased commitment in pledges. It's sort of taken me aback, so I'm processing it as I yabber on. Do forgive me, but thank you indeed for that. Now, so much of the things that we've said is very positive. We've spoken about how private sector, large ships like the UNHCR, nimble little startups and entrepreneurs can work together, coexist, and forge a different future. Because at the end of the day, that is what we're talking about. Make no mistake, the changes and the scale of what the UNHCR and my contributors are pledging for and towards is a different world. We're trying to aim for world change, which is no mean feat. But as a refugee myself, I wanted to take a few moments to explain why this is important. One of the key things to remember is refugees are never born, they are made. They are made in difficult circumstances and situations. I myself was born in Afghanistan and in the 90s became a refugee because my mother saw no future for me and my baby sister in the regime at the time. Well, history might not repeat itself, but it certainly does rhyme. And today, in the summer that we've just seen, Afghanistan, the country that I was born in, has been thrown into tumult once again, and refugee numbers are ever increasing from my birthland. Now, one thing I knew as a 6-year-old coming to the United Kingdom, I didn't know it with words, but I knew it with the fact, in my bones, in the way I felt and the things that I saw around me, was wherever I was today was safer than I was before. My experience of integration was very easy. I went to school, I learned the language, I played with children, I grew up, I became British Afghan. But for my parents, it was incredibly difficult. My mother and father both educated. One holds a PhD in mathematics and physics, the other civil engineer with a master's, ended up becoming a hotel cleaner and a night guard. And we were very happy with that. We were very enchanted with the fact that we were part of society, and the pride that Tolga, that Sergio, that Julien speaks of having a job, of knowing you're doing something, is one I know to this day my mum holds her head up about and talks to anyone and anyone in our community to get a job within the refugee community. Now, I've had the fortune of being able to grow out of my refugee identity, but it's shaped every single moment of my life and who I am. And as I sit here before you today, I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind, that every number you hear, every person that we speak about, they are people and lives are being changed. So just a moment to just perhaps offer a little bit of insight from what it's like from a refugee's perspective. With that, Tolga, I'd like to come to you again, because refugees have been getting a bad rap. Most of the time we are feared, sometimes hated, but definitely felt sorry for. But the one thing that never tends to happen is that we're never heard from in most public watering holes. So in addition to the comments you've made, you're working on projects called a project called Changing the Narrative Around Refugees. So I want to understand, can you please help us understand what is the narrative that you are dealing with at Inca Group and IKEA, and how do you think that changing the narrative can incorporate and involve private sector entities like yourself?
Thank you, and it's just building on what you just shared yourself from your story as well. So we have a clear goal to visibly have changed the narrative, the understanding, the perception, and actions connected to refugees in the markets and countries where we operate. So that's our goal, and we have set ourselves the coming years to achieve it. And we started already. When it comes to internal work, it starts by us being the good example, and it starts by us understanding. So thanks to the program that we have started, bringing in refugees into IKEA, we have also asked them to share their stories with us, the rest of us at IKEA, for us to have a better understanding of what does it mean to be a refugee? What does it mean to leave everything you love behind you and go somewhere you have no clue what's going to happen? And that creates a better understanding to start with. So a lot of educational workshops internally in IKEA for the rest of us to understand. But then I must say, we take the advantage of the space we have been given as IKEA. So we have also started to have customer-facing workshops, communication, storytelling, and so far we have reached over 500 million readers with the stories about the refugees, why it is important, why is it good for the society, why is it really crucial for businesses going forward. And it's not only about us telling, it's also about us joining forces with governments, other private sector companies and NGOs, both on a global level, but also in a local level. So it's all about radical collaboration to reach a common ambition that we have set. So as an example, our friends in Australia partnered up together with University of Sydney and a Crescent Foundation to actually co-create an employer's guideline to refugee employment, because it didn't exist. There was no praxis, there was no precedent on how do we do these things. And then instead of saying, yeah, we can't do anything because there is no praxis, why don't we join forces and create one? Might not be the perfect one, but it's better than nothing. A lot of examples like that. So it's all about learn, understand. It's about share. It's about use the channels that we have to be the voice we can be of the many refugees out there to make an impact. The overall goal is to change the narrative. And I want to say, I'm very proud of the work we have done. However, I feel we are just in the beginning. There is so much more to be done. And if I were to end this question with a question, to say to all of us, when we look at the refugee, who do we see? Do we see our neighbor? Do we see a customer? Or do we see an employee? Or do we see the next manager of IKEA? Do I see my next boss when I look at a refugee? If you don't, I would really question the success of the company that you're running going forward. So please, I encourage all of us to join forces and to make sure, we give the right integration opportunity for refugees wherever they are, and why they are there doesn't matter, but let's be there to help and integrate the refugees, and also do our utmost to change the narrative, because it's a very unfair and it's not what the world deserves.
Thank you, Tolga, for those remarks. It's not fair. It's not what the world deserves, indeed. Deputy High Commissioner Kelly Clements, if I may come to you for a moment. We've heard so much about what the private sector are doing, both in front of the screens and behind the screens, to try and change things on many levels. But all of it is motivated by profit, which is good for the businesses and good for the rest of us, I hope. We've heard from IKEA that it's not just about employment, that it's not just about skills or reskilling, it's about changing perceptions. And we've heard from the IFC that it's about understanding the policy, the practices, the red tape, or the regulation, and learning to change, adapt, or maneuver around those barriers. If I may come to you, can you tell us other ways in which the private sector can make a difference? We've got questions coming in from the audience asking about things, for example, like certain refugee camps or where refugees live might be far away from businesses and entities. So practical questions as well as larger ideological and philosophical ones, if I may come to you.
Sure, thank you, Nilüfer. I have to say, I'm listening to all of you, it gives me goosebumps. I'm incredibly inspired. And we have some amazing advocates joining here on the panel, and including yourself. So thank you for your personal words as well. It is incredible to hear these perspectives from AEC and from IKEA and from IFC, just exactly for that reason. It shows us the many ways that the private sector can contribute. The only limit right now is one's imagination and one's creativity and one's innovation. And it's not just the private sector in so-called developed countries, but in the largest refugee hosting areas, as we heard from both AEC and IFC. IKEA has showed us that when you support refugees and refugees are mainstreamed into your core business, it doesn't just help more refugees build a better future, but it also helps customer engagement, employee engagement, and even sales. And I can say that personally speaking as well. So the benefits are much broader. We focused a lot on jobs and on entrepreneurship. But the private sector has something to contribute really to almost every area of our work: education, energy, and even protection. I want to go back to an example that I talked about at the beginning about PillNet, this NGO that brought 30 law firms together, major multinational companies, 165,000 hours of pro bono support. These are hours that people give of themselves on top of already jobs that are more than 100%. And they do it because they care and they think they can make a difference. That's not to match my esteemed colleagues on this panel, but 30% more hours than they pledged 2 years ago. And they exceeded their target, just as we've heard from panelists today, exceeding their targets as well. They've given refugees access to life-changing legal assistance. Let me tell you about another example, Nilüfer. In Turkey, Turkcell serves 2 million Syrians with mobile communication. It created an app called Hello Hope, which helps solve very practical day-to-day integration issues that Syrians face. The app has Turkish language cards, because the Turkish languages can be difficult for those not immersed in it, instant speech translation between Turkish and Arabic, a frequently asked questions section on registration, how to access public services, including education and health. And then there was something which led the user to nearby facilities like pharmacies or schools, very practical things, bus stops, even where to find a little cash through an ATM. And it has a news section and more. And in other words, by understanding the needs of Syrian refugees as customers, The company saw a market and they developed a specific product to serve the needs of that specific customer segment. The common thread to all these pledges, like I said, is innovation, but it's also impact. Not just innovation and the shiny bauble, the really cool toy, but it's also about business models and partnerships with NGOs, the private sector, us, governments, working together to find solutions.
Well, I hope that those of you watching the live stream had pen and paper to hand, because there was a lot of tips there for you to keep up with from Kelly. Thank you so much for that contribution. We are exactly 2 years away from the 2023 Global Refugee Forum, my dear viewers. The private sector has stepped up, and we're hearing that they are stepping up again and again and again. We've made progress thanks to the efforts of organizations such as IKEA, the AEC and the IFC, but more needs to be done. As we've been hearing from the companies and organizations themselves, they are challenging themselves to pledge more, do more, think differently. Julian and Sergio, I want to come to you next. I'm going to ask each of you the same question, hopefully get some more insight. What would be your top recommendations when it comes to mobilizing new people who want to make new pledges and commitments from the private sector? So in essence, how does one get started? Julianne, let's begin with you.
Thanks so much. And it's always exciting to have this question. So one of the things that Deputy High Commissioner mentioned at the beginning was that just last week, we were one of the co-conveners alongside UNHCR, Amahoro Coalition, and the government of Rwanda. And we hosted the first ever, what we called the 36 Million Solutions, Africa Private Sector Forum on Forced Displacement. And this was an incredible convening for so many ways. But one of the reasons was because it was the first time that we intentionally targeted private sector companies across the continent to challenge them to work in these communities. And part of it was around raising awareness. Like so many people in private sector don't understand that these markets have value, that these are customers. As we as business owners are trying to drive to find the next frontier market, the refugee camps in Kenya, for instance, are the top 10 size in secondary cities. 36 million forcibly displaced in Africa, that would be the number 12 most populous country, right? These are markets of consumers and employers and employees. And one of the things that was remarkable about this event was really to say, one, here's how you can get involved very practically. Two, that it's not just a moral obligation for us to work in communities of forced displacement. It's an opportunity for business growth. And when you can find a way to succeed in a refugee community, that is when you actually improve your own business model for even more scale. And finally, I would say, it was around, these are our neighbors. This is our future. And when you have somebody who's able to get up on stage and say, thanks to this panel, I am now contributing $1 million worth of healthcare products because I see refugees, IDPs, asylum seekers as ways of benefiting my business, that then creates a ripple effect. And over the course of 2 days, we raised over $3 million in new contributions, including cash and product pledges across the continent, from East Africa, West Africa, and Southern Africa. We had an incredible amount of fun, and we made a commitment to doing it again before the next GRF. So do it in your markets, like do it with your friends and companies and competitors. Because as Tolga is mentioning, right, running better businesses that are purpose-driven is actually a way of getting better employee engagement, not only for today, but into the future.
Very good point made. And frankly speaking, Julian, as a journalist, yes, I am a refugee. Yes, I am a Londoner, as you can hear from my accent. But I'm also a journalist, and sometimes I do journalism. I've managed to get to a lot of the countries mentioned so far. People have mentioned Syria, Turkey, of course, Afghanistan, Ghana, Benin, you name it. I've probably had an opportunity to go there. And one of the things I've seen time and again is, as I mentioned before, refugees are made, we are not born. And when I say we're made, I mean, quite literally the process of leaving, of having to go through the arduous sometimes difficult, dangerous, and life-threatening circumstances that we have to go through, means there's a certain level of resilience that is built within refugees. One thing that I want to highlight to everyone, and to my panelists especially, is there is no great onus on refugees to be good immigrants. We try to, and we do our best, but sometimes help, assistance, advice, and encouraging contributions and pledges like the ones you've made are as critical to our success as our aptitude, our willingness, eagerness, and resilience. So I'm hearing a lot here about listening to the refugees themselves about what they need, rather than thinking about what they need and trying to address those issues, which is all good, gets my seal of approval. Sergio, I want to come to you now with the same question. What would you recommend? What are your top recommendations when it comes to mobilizing new pledges and new commitments? What advice do you give?
Thank you very much. And let me try and add a couple of things to what Julian was just saying, which I think are very, very pertinent and a very good answer to the question you asked. As I mentioned earlier, there are two dimensions. There's the dimension of corporate social responsibility, where pledges are so important. But I also see the second dimension of how you just increase the role of private sector in terms of how much the private sector can contribute to some of the core needs of refugees. And that's where I think we really need to focus on how we can unlock that space more, how we can get private sector really to step up in terms of its contribution, its participation. And I see this in a certain number of areas I mentioned earlier, like around financial inclusion, whether it's working with banks, microfinance, money transfer operators, but also I would like to mention the importance of food security and how you help integrate the refugees and the host communities into the agricultural value chains and all the links between producers, consumers that exist on the food value chains. I think that's an important one. And of course, I also think I mentioned earlier also the importance of access to better housing, access to education. This was mentioned by several panelists. So these are areas where I really think the private sector can step up and there is a business dimension to that, and that's where I think we need to focus on. And I would make maybe two recommendations to try and answer your question. On the one hand, I think it would be very useful to clarify expectations and to enable the environment for more private sector interventions. And what I mean specifically by this is to clearly identify when and where it makes sense for private companies to engage, and what would it take to remove bottlenecks that prevent them to do so. And let me give you a very simple example. If we were to allow the IDs that are issued by the UNHCR, the refugee IDs, to be accepted as a formal ID by financial institutions, this would unlock a tremendous financial inclusion opportunity. It would enable microfinance institutions, it would enable commercial banks to just meet central bank requirements and would enable them to support financially, to provide financing to refugees. So this is a simple recommendation that could really increase the impact that private sector could play to support refugees and the host communities. And then on the other hand, I would also say, for instance, that there's a lot that can be done through investment and through technical assistance. And this is one of the areas IFC is really focusing on, both on the investment and technical assistance. If we could give more opportunities to private sector companies to engage, because they are often willing to do it, but they see the environment as either an environment that they don't know well, or they find it's too risky, or they find that they don't understand it well enough. So we can, with technical assistance, help them get there. And then through financial investment products, including to what we call blended finance, meaning instruments that help de-risk the investments. That is a way that we can encourage more private sector companies to be active in this sector. And at IFC, we're very committed to do our part on both accounts. And this is something that we're really keen on doing. I mean, we will I think was mentioned by other panelists today, this is something we cannot do by ourselves. So partnerships will be key to make this success, to make this happen. And we are very, very keen on moving forward with all these dimensions. I'm sure after this panel, we'll continue our discussions with the different participants to see how we can build better partnerships and have more impact on the ground. But I can already tell you that we are starting to engage on a joint initiative with the UNHCR that would really scale up the scope of our work for private sector solutions for refugees and the host communities. And this is something that I'm really very excited about.
Sergio, thank you so much for that commitment. We have you recorded now, so that is something that you're going to have to keep to. It is great to hear as well the insight that you shared about absolutely there might be fears, absolutely there might be trepidation and some angst in getting a private sector engaging with a community that is so often voiceless, shapeless, faceless, and trying to create pathways for businesses, barely a glint in the eye of the entrepreneur creating them at the moment, to have pathways to be able to engage with the refugee and forcibly displaced communities. So, what have we learned so far? Well, that employment is right at the top of the wish list for refugees, and that it is the main way for us to integrate and rebuild our lives. I know and have lived that personally. But I also know and can confirm nothing can be achieved unless we give refugees the chance to be confident and to know their value, not only as human beings, but in the bravery and the dignity required to ask for help and to be met with humanity when we need it. Everyone that you have heard speak today understands that core tenet and principle of the UNHCR. And I am sure many of our colleagues and viewers watching understand and agree too. It is very brave to stand up and say, I need help. And it's very brave to meet that with humanity. And that's something I think I've heard a lot from all of our panelists. Kelly, I'm going to turn to you now for our final comments from the UNHCR's perspective.
Thanks so much, Nilüfer. I have to say, I told you earlier I was inspired. I'm leaving this conversation inspired. I can't emphasize enough. It's been an absolute pleasure having you part of this conversation with us again, including your personal insights. I've taken a few notes here in terms of your words are very powerful. So thank you for that. And thanks obviously to all the partners, not just those that are on screen with us today, but those that have been on this journey with us, not just since 2019, but before. But the future is really bright. And I think together it's going to help us in our search for solutions and help make a whole lot of lives a lot better. What we've really seen today are successful examples of what we can do and everybody winning when the private sector supports refugees. And we want many, many more companies to make pledges and do good business, as Tolga has shared. And we stand ready, not just to advise, but also to help to co-create some of these pledges with you. And we know we can count on the support of others that are listening in today. I can't underscore enough that it's more urgent than it ever was to participate in this search for solutions and this collective effort to make lives better. The pandemic has really heightened a lot of vulnerabilities across the globe, but especially for refugees, putting at risk, really leaving no one behind, the promise of the 2030 agenda. It's really difficult to reach under current circumstances, but it's motivating to see the surge of support from the private sector and how businesses, big and small, have adapted to meet the needs of customers, employees, and refugees during these tough times. The key ways in which the private sector can contribute are quite straightforward. First, you can advocate. You can help us, as we've heard today, change the narratives around refugees and foster policies that will lead to more open, inclusive, and prosperous societies. Second, you can donate, support our work on the ground. Every contribution counts. We haven't spoken much today about the amazing generosity of our private sector donors, but it's all the more remarkable coming from individuals and companies that do not have much to start with, and yet they still give. And we've seen in the case of IKEA's 3 pledges, philanthropy, entrepreneurship, and employment, it can be mutually reinforcing. Third, continue to innovate. not just with products and services, but in how you partner and how you do good by doing good business. Dig deep and look at the capabilities and the creative solutions you can bring to the table. Fourth, support inclusion, employment, entrepreneurship, as you've heard from our moderator and others on the panel. After hearing from Julianne in particular, I'm sure I don't need to underscore that refugees can be great, great entrepreneurs, which we saw in Kigali just a couple of weeks ago. But we've also seen that none of us can do it alone. It takes a village, and governments must step up with conducive policies that uphold refugee rights. And by upholding those rights, the right to work, the ability to move around, they can expand possibilities and crowd in the investment that benefits refugees and host communities. And development actors must also step up to catalyze financing, to advocate, and to help to generate the data that the private sector requires to assess risks, as Sergio mentioned, and ultimately to invest. And they're stepping up. And as we heard, from Sergio on this point. The UN system itself must work harder to be a better partner for the private sector. I heard that comment about bottlenecks, and I know we can do better, and we will try to do better. And we didn't mention the NGOs, cities, refugee-led organizations, business networks, the chambers of commerce, which are in fact already working closely with the private sector, explaining to companies how they can find and onboard refugee talent, or how they can serve refugees as clients. Their work is critically crucial, and there is so much more that we can do on that front to achieve scale. Fostering partnerships, inspiring others, breaking down silos, that is what the Global Compact on Refugees is all about. And again, all of this must be grounded in the aspirations of refugees themselves. So, Nilüfer, in conclusion, we're not just looking for more individual businesses to pledge and to follow the lead of the companies we've heard from today. We need to go further. We need to integrate refugees into the environmental, social, and governance agenda to show how investing in refugees means delivering on the Sustainable Development Goals. And can I be so bold to suggest that business put 1% of its earnings aside to invest in the future, to invest in refugees? This might be a good goal for the next Global Refugee Forum. Not only is it the right thing to do, it also makes good business sense, as we heard today. It's only 2 years away. It'll be our next milestone. Between then and now, we need to work together to try to achieve it. And that work can't start in a month or a year. It has to start today. And our hope is that as a result, we will have not just a few, but 100 pledges like IKEA's and AEC's, as well as more joint pledges by governments, NGOs, private sector, and others, targeting the largest refugee hosting situations. Those are where the greatest and most urgent needs rest. So thank you to Julianne, to Sergio, to Tolga, and of course to you for being here today. I'm honored to be with you for just these few minutes, but I know that the commitment and the partnership is strong, and look forward to continuing to work together. Thanks.
And with the Deputy High Commissioner has indeed thrown down the gauntlet, asking for 1% contribution from the private sector as we head towards 2023. My deepest respect and thanks to all of you for joining us. Kelly Clements, Deputy High Commissioner for the UNHCR, Tolga Unju, the Retail Operations Manager with the Inca Group, which operates IKEA stores worldwide, Julianne Euler, for the Chief Executive Officer with the African Entrepreneur Collective, and Sergio Pimenta, Vice President of Africa with the International Finance Corporation. And thank you all for joining us on this stream. We hope that you have found the contributions that we have heard from our panelists insightful and inspiring. Frankly, there, I said it, the buzzword, it happened. We'll end today's panel with a video featuring refugees and locals working together at the IKEA store in Zagreb, Croatia. It is a great example of refugee inclusion and the many benefits it brings to businesses, host communities, and society writ large. It's a lovely video. Please stay and watch. My name is Nilüfer Hidayat. I want to thank everyone on the UNHCR team for inviting me, especially those that helped me write the script and put this event together. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, and stay tuned for our video happening now.
This is very important for me, for Croatian people, that they don't look me, please, just a refugee. Look to me human.
Možda nekad kroz medije i dobijemo neku krivu sliku o njima, ali definitivno mi je otvorilo onak malo oči, malo širije da vidim stvari u kakvim su oni problemima i kako se bore.
Ne bih ih nazvao izbjeglicama nego kolegama.
Neko čovjek na svijetu želi biti izbjeglica, ali situacija šta bilo, ali ja, mi smo baš dragi ljudi isto, volimo raditi puno.
We believe that if you have a job, you can easily incorporate in the society much faster and with better success.
It's very important for refugees and displaced people all over the world. They all ask for pretty much the same thing. They want to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and they would like a livelihood of some kind to give their lives real meaning and to enable them to be better integrated into the community.
When I see a refugee, I see a brave person who is willing to do so much to be accepted, to find a new home, to find a new place in a new society.
Kad gledam se, vidim sretna curu.
Vidim prijatelja.